Welcome back, everyone, to the NFT Nation podcast, the most relatable and reliable NFT and crypto podcast in the nation. Today, I am lucky enough to be here with Felix MK, who is the lead content creator for Grape Finance. Grape Finance is a decentralized application looking to give rewards for the members of its community. There are many ways to invest into the Grape Finance ecosystem, like earning interest on holding a certain coin or even receiving airdrops from holding a Grape Finance NFT. So without further ado, I'd like to give my guest the floor and allow him to introduce himself. How's it going, Felix? Welcome to NFT Nation.
I'm doing well, Michael. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. I'm happy to have you on the podcast today and learn more about you and everything you do inside of Grape Finance. But with that, before we hop into learning more about you and what you do with Grape Finance, do you mind explaining to the audience kind of who you are and maybe a brief explanation of how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so I'm from DC. I work as a camera operator and video editor, basically. But before I really got into crypto, I was always like a big gamer, just kind of exploring the internet, interested in learning new things, and I feel like kind of with being a content creator, that sort of goes hand in hand. So yeah, that's kind of stuff I've always been interested in, and crypto's been like a more recent interest for me, obviously. But it's been cool to be able to sort of blend that with some things I've been into in the past, and obviously my professional skills too. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really excited to learn more about what you do inside the crypto space, and not only that, just your entire kind of content creation as a whole. But to start with that, you obviously mentioned you create content. Like, what kind of content do you create either inside of the crypto space or out of it? Like, what do you do with all that?
yeah, so as I mentioned, I mean, I've been working like for a few years as a camera guy and a video editor, but for the most part, that's part of like a bigger team. So I've been from now and again, I would shoot like documentaries or small commercials if one of my friends had a business that needed some promo, you know what I mean? But I've never been like that invested in kind of developing my own platform until I really got into crypto. And kind of realized that, first of all, how much information is out there, how fast things are changing, and then not to be disrespectful or sound like I'm an expert, but how little information people have, how hard it is to understand some of this stuff. So I felt like maybe I could help in some way, as well as kind of like meet some interesting folks along the way. So what I did was I started off kind of with my Web 2 mindset of like, I'll find some clients and I'll pitch them some projects, some video projects, and I'll put a good price tag on it, and I'll, make a little side hustle out of it. And I did okay with that. I mean, for the most part, I realized that with some of these decentralized kind of organization styles, there's devs and there might be some community managers, but there's often not like a real centralized control structure. So it's harder to negotiate those kind of like old school deals. So what I did was I kind of just started my own YouTube platform and released like a couple of animated kind of explainer videos, and also some kind of more like instructional videos where I dive into like how to use different platforms. And from there, that's kind of helped me sort of circle back and work with some of these projects to kind of like make media on their behalf too. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I do sort of a whole mix of stuff on my own YouTube channel, which is just my name, Felix MK. But yeah, the deep dive stuff is what I really enjoy making, so like whiteboard animations or kind of stuff where you break down some of the more complicated concepts, like how does a pool work in a DEX? Like, so how does the price get determined with each trade? And that's stuff that, I didn't fully understand when I started making the video either. Like, I had an intuition for it, but then you learn along the way, and you meet people who know more than you. So that's been kind of the process of making videos. I feel like there's on crypto YouTube specifically, there's like people who are more newscaster style, and then there are people who are really in the weeds of showing people how to use stuff. But the problem is that those people who are really like recording their screen and demonstrating stuff often, I feel like, are also selling something at the same time. So I feel like there's definitely a need for a little bit of in between, kind of showing people how to navigate and also giving the big picture at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's really cool to see that me and you are kind of make similar content. We have the same kind of goal to spread the information to as many people as possible, to give our best kind of definitions of certain topics, or just help people understand certain topics inside the crypto space. So it's really good to kind of talk to someone that's has the same kind of plan as I do. But when you kind of on the topic of crypto and everything, can you talk about maybe your first interaction with crypto and when you first got into crypto?
Hmm. Yeah, so honestly, Michael, I had friends in college, and I'm kind of an old man, so this will date me, but I guess this is back like, mid 2010s. And I had some friends who were using the Silk Road for God knows what people use the Silk Road for.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, one of them had some Bitcoin, and I remember him just telling me one day, like, dude, the Bitcoin I was holding on to just went up, like it doubled. And I wasn't really into like the stock market or trading at all. But that I definitely remembered that, and I bought a little bit. I think I got a Coinbase account, and I bought a little bit and pretty much forgot about it. Um, and then like come 4 or 5 years later, I heard about NFTs, and then I rediscovered my account, and it wasn't a lot. It was like maybe a couple $100 worth of Bitcoin, but it had gone up. And then from there, it was just a process of discovering Ethereum, and then other altcoins and other layer ones, and realizing all the different things people are using it for now.
Yeah, that's awesome. You kind of just did a little experiment with crypto, and you're like, hey, ended up making a little bit of money, and you kind of hop down the rabbit hole from there. It's really cool to see. But you talked about, obviously you kind of just almost not kind of accidentally got into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and then learned from there. Do you do much NFT trading, or are you into NFTs at all?
Yeah, I mean that is basically, how the reason I first created like my MetaMask, the first coin I ever bought other than Bitcoin, was ETH, right? To buy some NFTs, to mint some NFTs actually. So that was like probably around the beginning, I want to say December, January, beginning of this year, 2022. Um, yeah, and so I was discovering some projects, kind of minting them on Ethereum, and kind of flipping some NFTs on OpenSea like that.
Awesome, awesome. It's nice to have someone that not only do they make really interesting content, they also share the same values and kind of hobbies as I do with crypto and NFTs. But to kind of start talking about Grape Finance and kind of the basics of Grape Finance and kind of learning all about that, can you talk about how you maybe got started with Grape Finance?
Yeah, so like I said, sometime after like selling NFTs on OpenSea, I got into like Algorand, and through discovering Algorand, that was like my first experience with a DEX, using a decentralized exchange called Tiny Man on Algorand. And they have a ton of different, basically like algo shitcoins, they call them lovingly, but just like tokens in the Algorand ecosystem
Yeah.
that projects can release, and it's really easy to make your own token, and NFT projects will come out with their own token, and they'll like give you different credits, or you can use them for giveaways and whatnot. So I thought that was pretty cool, and that really opened my eyes to like getting into these kind of ecosystem tokens, and like these small mint tokens, understanding, because it's kind of like an NFT, but it can represent so many different things. So that was like what opened my eyes to it, and then from there I discovered the Phantom Network, Tomb Finance, and Yorge projects, and Grape Finance was the one that really caught my eye over time as one that just had like consistent communication, a strong team, and most importantly, like the least degen emission schedule, which basically just allowed them to be more stable. So that's kind of how I discovered the project. Just hung out in the Discord, started talking to the mods, started talking to the team members, submitting questions, every now and again for their weekly AMA. And then, it's cool. You're able to get a live answer from their dev when they do their video call, and then come back and tag him in the Discord and be like, thanks for the answer, or, that answer was bullshit, however you feel about it. And then they'll respond to you. And so it's just a cool process of like, these are obviously smart guys. who understand the tokenomics, who obviously know how to code Solidity, and it's cool to just be able to get their perspective on stuff as an investor. So from there, those conversations kind of developed in me sort of helping them communicate, all that information.
That's awesome. It's really cool to hear how you kind of got your start. It's pretty interesting, and I think a lot of people can kind of resonate with that, especially if you're in a lot of Discord communities and you're talking with people all the time. You end up making these kind of bonds or even friendships within those communities, and you kind of work your way up. Many times it can happen where they just trust you because you've been there so long in the world. They'll kind of give you certain jobs or even certain roles inside the Discord or just the project as a whole, which is really cool to see. But with Grape Finance, if any of the listeners today are maybe have never heard of Grape Finance or having trouble kind of understanding what it is, can you kind of give a basic summary of what Grape Finance is?
Yeah, sure. And shameless plug, there's also a great video that kind of describes it with some graphics on my channel. But Grape is essentially a seigniorage project that started off as a fork of Tomb Finance, which I guess some people would say is a fork of Basis Cash. But the idea is that you have like a two token system. One is the share token and the other is a peg token, which is pegged to, in Tomb, it's pegged to Phantom. At Basis, it was pegged to $1. And that's actually what Grape does too. There's just pegged to MIM, which is like a $1 stablecoin. So the whole idea of the protocol is that by holding and staking your wine tokens, which is the share token, over time, the protocol prints more Grape as long as Grape stays above that price of MIM. So it's kind of like an elastic supply situation where they try to, slowly push the price down to $1 if it goes higher, and then they'll stop printing it and let people buy it back up to $1 if it goes lower. And the whole time they're basically offering rewards for people to buy and hold the tokens so that they can kind of direct that liquidity towards different like partner projects or investments and whatnot. So recently there's been like a new exchange launching on Avalanche, and Grape I think has like the sort of deepest liquidity pool in that exchange. It's called Swapsicle. It's about like $1 million worth of value in the Grape MIM pool over on Swapsicle. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that's kind of like the backbone of DeFi essentially, is being able to make those investments, redirect liquidity, provide liquidity for new platforms, and then the test over time is, what kind of products and what kind of revenue can you generate from that liquidity. So it's getting a little bit macro, but that's the journey that Grape is on. It started as a sort of basic fork where it's printing the Grape token and giving people rewards for holding the Grape token. And now, they're still distributing those rewards, but they're also on their way to kind of developing a bunch of other like platforms to sort of go around that system as well.
That's awesome. What would you say kind of like the main goal of Grape Finance is? Like, there might be many goals, but what's the kind of the broad goal, would you say?
Right. So the broad goal is basically to just increase the circulation of the Grape token and make the Grape token something that's, similar to MIM or USDC, and not in the way that it's collateralized and like hard pegged to $1, but in the way that it can be used, on different blockchains, at different exchanges. It can be used to pay, different play to earn games, just to make Grape like a token that's useful across the whole Avalanche ecosystem and even different blockchains.
That's awesome. I love that goal. I think it's something that can definitely be achieved. I think it's important to understand, kind of be realistic with goals and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to kind of hop more in depth of what Grape Finance is and kind of broaden my knowledge on Grape Finance, and especially letting the audience know all about Grape Finance. So with Grape Finance, there is many different features. Could you maybe describe some of the strongest features or the most important features that are a part of what Grape Finance is?
Yeah, sure. So as someone who's like just discovering the project, the most obvious kind of way you can interact with it is just by buying either the Grape or the wine tokens and staking them in some way, either in the liquidity pools or in the winery or by making a node and getting some kind of return on those tokens, right? So that's like the obvious way that most people get attracted to the project, and it's kind of like where people normally start with it.
Yeah, awesome. And kind of with the features and everything, can you you mentioned the wine token, obviously, but can you explain some more basics of Grape Finance and what you can invest in and what you can buy within the platform?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, like I said, Grape is the token that they're trying to print and sort of expand over time. And the key is that, they want to expand it so they're not expanding too fast that the supply shoots up and the price goes down below $1. So they're trying to, they print at essentially it's 0.5% of supply every epoch, and there's 4 epochs per day. So that's 2% of supply every day expansion. And then a little over half of that actually goes to the Grape Treasury. So it's more like 1% per day expansion. So that's the grape token. It's constantly expanding in supply. Right now, it's a little over 3 million grapes in circulation. The wine token is capped at 45,000 supply. And it's kind of like a fixed expansion schedule that will last through January next year. And so right now we're about I want to say 40% of the way through like the total release of wine tokens. And the wine token is the share token that you basically can stake in the boardroom, and that gives you a share of those grapes that are being printed every day. So that 1% expansion of grapes goes, the way they distribute it is to anyone who's holding wine and stakes it in the boardroom. They get a share of that print.
Awesome. And when you mentioned staking, some members of the audience may have trouble fully understanding what staking is, especially with inside of Grape Finance. Can you kind of explain, maybe give a basic kind of 101 of what staking is and maybe how it works for the Grape Finance ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a great question because it is like a sort of broad term, right? But essentially, like the basic interaction you can have with crypto is like you have your Coinbase account, you buy a Bitcoin and you hold it, right? And you wait for the price to go up, and then at some point you sell it. But staking is basically like, opening a savings account for that crypto where you get interest on it. So, and different platforms like Coinbase allows you to stake on Coinbase actually. But if you want to sort of get a little more advanced with it, and you get, a MetaMask wallet, and you connect to the Avalanche blockchain, and you get some Grape tokens, you can stake on the Grape Finance website, and Grape is giving you, much higher APR percentage than if you were to just stake coins on Coinbase. So essentially, staking is just a way of depositing into some kind of pool or some kind of vault or some kind of account to earn interest. And there's different like twists on that. So for example, with the standard way on Coinbase, you can withdraw your Bitcoin or whatever you staked. You can withdraw it at any time. And with other options, like for example, if a node, the tokens you put in there are actually locked forever, you're never getting them back, but you're getting like a higher percentage back every day. So there's kind of like different forms that are kind of like higher risk or more long-term staking as well.
Yeah, that's cool. I really appreciate you giving that basic definition of staking, just because sometimes I can tell a lot of times when I'm listening to podcasts or stuff and they're talking about certain topics, they forget to kind of explain even what they're talking about. So I think that's really going to help people understand everything about staking and kind of the benefits of it. But with Grape Finance, there's also a big NFT kind of section of the ecosystem. And can you talk about kind of just all? You don't have to mention like all the NFTs, because I'm sure there's a lot of them. But can you talk about maybe the different types of NFTs, the different types of collections that are inside Grape Finance, and the benefits for holding a winery NFT as well?
Well, there are 2,700, so you're right that I probably won't go through them one by one, but actually there's only a few types, so it's kind of different from a traditional NFT collection where it's like a generally character based, right? And they have different traits to make them all unique. In the Grape system, there's actually only 4 unique types, and those represent different tiers. So it's 2,700 total. The tier 1, they're all forms of wine, right? So the tier 1 is going to be bagged wine. So like if you bought a box of Franzia, pulled the bag of wine out of there, and they call that the goon sack. Then the next tier up is going to be the wine glass. Next up you have the decanter, and then the top tier is the goblet. And what those NFTs do is that anyone who holds a Grape Finance node and at least one NFT, you get airdrops. So they say it's monthly, but actually the project's kind of booming right now, so it's more like weekly or every 2 weeks. But what they do is they, a share of the fees that they take from people who buy nodes, they put them in this little pool, and they airdrop that pool, every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks to whoever holds the NFTs. So, the higher tier NFT you have, you get a bigger share of the airdrop, basically.
That's awesome. Talking about rewards, and I'm obviously big in NFTs. There's a reason it's called the NFT Nation podcast. But talking about rewards and everything through Grape Finance, some people might wonder how the rewards are set up, or what rewards can they expect. Obviously, nothing is guaranteed inside this market, but say you stake your crypto or through Grape Finance, or you're kind of investing in Grape Finance through different means, what type of rewards can be expected for someone that is looking to start using Grape Finance?
Right. So the rewards that they offer at Grape Finance kind of range depending on which option you choose, right? So what we were talking about with staking wine and getting a share of the fresh grape prints, that's one of the higher APY options. So I think you actually get like over 1% a day, which is something like 400 or 500% APR, which is, extremely high. And then the farms where you hold like a mix of grape MIM and you're adding to that liquidity pool on the DEX, and you're getting like a share of the trading fees, plus you're also getting some wine tokens as an extra reward. That's more like 0.7% per day, which is still really high. It's like 250, 300% APY. Yeah. So those are like the rewards just in terms of percentage. The important thing to remember is that you're holding like grape and wine tokens. So, those are a little bit volatile. Wine is much more volatile. And then you're getting your rewards generally in wine tokens, or for some of the nodes, you get grape tokens as a reward. But, the point is that you're not getting like a USDC or something as your reward. You're getting more grape tokens as your reward. So the rewards are like subject to the price of grape, essentially. And that's kind of an important thing to remember as far as like how the system works, is that it is an inflationary system, right? So you're getting rewards through inflation of the wine token getting distributed. So it does rely on basically like more volume, more trading volume coming into the ecosystem. And that's why, they keep rolling out new features like nodes, like partnerships with the DEXs, like the NFT collection. So it's like an interesting kind of race against time in a sense where they are inflating their token count, but they're betting that they can release enough updates and develop enough new uses for the tokens to make it so that it spreads across the ecosystem and faster than the actual supply inflates, essentially.
That's awesome. I think it's a very kind of probable thing to make a decent return on investment for using Grape Finance, and there are many different applications within that. But to kind of close out the kind of Grape Finance section of this episode, so Grape Finance has a very long roadmap, and they've obviously completed a bunch in the majority of what they are set out to do. Can you talk about some of the completions of that roadmap that might have been most important to where Grape Finance is today, and maybe even what you're most excited about Grape Finance doing in the future?
Sure. I honestly can't say like enough positive things about the speed and like just the sort of innovation behind the updates they've released so far, right? So we talked about how they started off as just like a fork of Tomb Finance, and that style of project honestly unfortunately has a bad reputation for just developers that are lazy and either rug pull or soft rug pull or semi rug pull or whatever you want to call it, where they just launch a new project, rip the code off GitHub, and basically put in no effort. So right away, it's hard to earn people's trust with that style of project where it's kind of high risk, tokens are coming out. But what Grape did over time was just kind of slow down the emissions, kind of turn down that kind of like intense, like, promising shiny object rewards that a lot of these projects offer. And they just started rolling out updates that I personally hadn't seen before. So the NFT drop was a big one in my opinion, where there really hadn't been other DeFi projects of that size that had released NFTs that were like collected to the connected to the fees on the system, where you're getting some kind of share of the revenue. Like I can think of Platypus Finance is a big DEX with venture capital, multi-million-dollar investment, right? And they're doing that. But Grape kind of just rolled it out on their own with some pixel art, and it took them some time. And a lot of people in the Discord, I think, even were like, I don't really see how this is going to work. This is taking forever. But then I was one of the people who actually got a free one for having to stake some tokens at the time, right? They just kind of quietly did a little snapshot, send some out to some of the people who were staking. And at the time, they're worth like 1 AVAX. Now the minimum floor price is like 15, right? So it's gone crazy, and it just shows like so many other similar DeFi projects now have also launched an NFT collection with a similar function. And then they added nodes to their project in a way that like we've seen a lot of node projects come out and just die, but their nodes were kind of tuned in a way where again the rewards were not super crazy high, they weren't promising too much, and they kind of worked it in with the rest of the project. So they gave some of the rewards to the NFT holders, people who bought NFTs, who minted NFTs. They use some of those fees to add to the treasury and kind of add to the liquidity. So they're just smart about how they balance things out, and they just keep rolling out interesting updates. So those are, I think, the NFT collection and the nodes are some huge ones. And then the next ones I'm looking forward to are going to be kind of a system to like lend and borrow against your grape. So either you can like leverage trade your grape, or you can deposit some wine and borrow some grape against it to yield farm on that, so you don't have to sell your wine. So that's going to be an interesting platform. I want to see if they also like incorporate lending and borrowing other tokens from other projects. And then the new DEX that we talked about, Swapsicle. That's a cool project in my opinion. I like them just because the majority of their tokens are going out to people who are yield farming. Like they don't have a whole ton of tokens for the team. They're really open about where their token distribution's at, and I think that's crucial. So
yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you kind of laying that out there and letting everyone know not only like the kind of history of the roadmap, but what Grape Finance is looking forward to completing, or maybe even just some bright spots in the future for Grape Finance. If anyone in the audience is looking to kind of learn more about Grape Finance and everything it has to offer, I'll leave a couple links in the show notes for easy access to that. And Felix, I want to thank you again for kind of coming on and explaining Grape Finance. But with that all out of the way, I want to learn more about what you do inside the space. I know you gave a kind of brief explanation of what you do at the beginning of this episode, but I think it's kind of interesting, everything you do, not only with your YouTube channel and the content you create, but also the many other things you work on. And can you kind of explain more in depth of the YouTube videos you make and what goes into them? Like what's the day-to-day look like for Felix?
Sure, yeah. So as we were discussing, I can't remember if it was before the recording or not, right? I actually work full-time as a camera operator and an editor for, I don't want to dox them too hard, but for just like a big contractor agency. So, time to time I have to drive in to the studio and shoot a little bit in there. And then obviously I have editing that I do from home for that. So in between that, what I really like to do is, I'll research projects. I mean, that's just kind of what I do anyway, right? I like investing in these projects. I want to make sure I understand them before I do that. So I'm always kind of jumping around Discords, looking at announcements, kind of trying to read a little bit more into the announcements, seeing if it's been done before, seeing how that went, etc. So that's kind of all been going around in my head for a while. And then, I'll just knock out a few scripts at a time. And when I have a chance, I got the little green screen in my bedroom, just pop it up behind the desk and try to record some videos. So that's kind of what I do. And when I'm recording, I like to, kind of demonstrate how to use it. And obviously also I try to emphasize, the risks as well as just like, oh my God, 100% APY, 300% APY, because I think we see a ton of that. So I try to give like a good balance as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And to kind of continue on what you do, looking at your link tree, you have something called the My Algo NFT collection. Can you kind of give some explanation of that and just go more in depth on what that is?
Yeah, for sure. So that's if you click on that, actually, that's just my Algorand NFT collection. So Algorand's a blockchain. You could call it a blockchain, I guess, once it really gets momentum. But the point is, they have like low transaction fees. It's a fun blockchain to trade NFTs on, in my opinion. So I still have a good few NFTs on there that I'm kind of holding. Honestly, holding a lot of Ethereum NFTs just kind of makes me a little bit nervous. Because of the transaction fees, because of the volatility, because ETH itself. But these are cheaper NFTs. Some of them I got for free. Some of them I might have paid $30 for or whatever. And I honestly just think they're pretty cool. So I'm still
awesome.
holding on to a good few of these, and proud of my collection. It used to be a little bit bigger, but I still got some keepers.
Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome. I'm really happy you were able to come on and kind of state what you do and to learn more about you and what you do inside of Grape Finance. And I kind of want to give, before I have one question before we go, one more question. But before that, I would just like to give you the floor and kind of let the audience know maybe where they can find you on different social medias. Kind of just you have the floor. Say whatever you want, and just go right ahead before this last question.
Oh, right on. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we got into a lot of interesting topics just now, honestly. So, yeah, if anyone wants to check me out, you can find me on Twitter or on YouTube, Felix_MK. So it's Felix_MKay on Twitter or just _MK on YouTube. Should be pretty easy to find. I'm dropping, try to put a video out every, 2 or 3 every week, and just different DeFi strategies, different sites for yield farming, different DeFi projects, new DEX is coming out. So that's kind of what I'm working on. That's where I'm at, and I'd love to hear from you guys. So yeah, definitely reach out on Twitter, YouTube. Let me know if you guys think any of these strategies are useful. I'm happy to hear it all. So
yeah, and on that kind of topic, I will have all of Felix's kind of social media links in the show notes as well, with the Grape Finance links as well. So the last question I have for you today, I ask it to every podcast guest I have, and that is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh man, I think it would be some kind of like teleporting, Like I don't know if you've ever played the game like Overwatch, but they got that character Tracer. She can kind of like blink around, and then she can also like rewind time and sort of teleport back to where she's at. So some kind of combination like that. Maybe I'd like to be able to just get on top of the Empire State Building for a second and come back down. Maybe skip a 12-hour flight. I feel like there's a lot of useful stuff you can do with that.
That's awesome. I think I could see myself having that superpower as well. But I do want to thank you for coming on today and kind of taking time out of your day to explain what you do in Grape Finance. But I also want to thank the listeners today. You all are the whole reason Felix and I are here today, is to give you all the best information possible, because we are the most relatable and reliable NFT and crypto podcast in the nation. So I try to get some people that can give a relatable look inside the crypto space, just like I do on a kind of daily basis. But also, if you want to support the show in any way possible, there's multiple ways you can do it. You can either follow us on social media and kind of interact with us on there. The links will be in the show notes as well. It is at NFT_Nation_podcast on all different social medias. That is Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and even YouTube. Also, give us 5 stars on the Spotify page. That really helps us grow. It lets Spotify know that, hey, we're a pretty small podcast here, but, their content is pretty good, and maybe they should get some more publicity. But also,
Yeah, come on, guys. What are you at? Like 4.8, 4.9?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
unacceptable,
But
man. We gotta get those 5 stars.
Let's start rounding it up. We could use some help. But feel free to also share this episode with a friend if you want some of your friends to learn about Grape Finance as well as the work Felix is doing. So yeah, guys, I really just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart again for listening. And Felix, do you want to say anything before we head out here?
No, I just want to say thanks to you, Michael. This has been, a lot of fun. I've enjoyed listening to the last couple episodes of the podcast since I discovered you guys, and keep at it. It's a ton of interesting information. So thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, no problem. And yeah, that's gonna be it for me. Everyone, have a good day.